All right, so today's class is going to cover all of Unit 7. So we're going to go over both of the tutorials about the Victorian era and then the Victorian drama. I am going to let you know up front that I have a video for the Victoria drama one that really explains the importance of being earnest well, accurately, and clearly, but it does use bad words. Like there are a couple I think even the F-bomb is a part of it. And so I want to put that out up front. I'd love it if we could look past that aspect of it because it is very informational. So I want to put that out there up front. I will say it again when we get to the video, but there is bad words in that one, but it's super helpful. I watched many different videos and this is the only one that summarized it correctly and clearly and made sense. So disclaimer done. All right, so for this first Victorian era one, we looked at some poems from Alfred Lord Tennyson, who's a very famous Victorian poet. And so you're asked to look over two poems for the lesson activity. So there's Ulysses and Lady of Shalott, and then you're going to compare them a little bit. So Ulysses is actually about the Odyssey. So if you're familiar with that story, it's about Ulysses or Odysseus, depending on which language version you've read before. So what I did was I just found somebody else reading them. I just want you to pay attention to the reading. I think there's a video because it's YouTube that goes along with it. But I'm just going to play them and then I want you to think about the questions. So I'll play one. I'll talk a little bit about the characterization of Ulysses and then the Victorian ideals. And then I'll play the Lady of Shalott one. And we'll look at that and then kind of compare that Victorianness of it. All right. So this is Ulysses.
Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. It little profits that an idle king by this still hearth among these barren crags, matched with an aged wife, I meet and dole unequal laws unto a savage race that hoard and sleep and feed and know not me. I cannot rest from travel, I will drink life to the lees. All times I have enjoyed greatly, have suffered greatly, both with those that love me and alone, on shore, and when, through scudding drifts, the rainy Hyades vexed the dim sea. I am become a name, for always roaming with a hungry heart. Much have I seen and known, cities of men, and manners, climates, councils, governments, myself not least, but honored of them all, and drunk delight of battle with my peers, far on the ringing plains of windy Troy. I am a part of all that I have met, yet all experience is an arch wherethrough gleams that untravelled world whose margin fades forever and forever when I move. How dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rust unburnished, not to shine in use, as though to breathe were life, life piled on life, for all too little, and of one to me little remains. But every hour is saved from that eternal silence, something more, a bringer of new things, and vile it were for some 3 suns to store and hoard myself, and this grey spirit yearning in desire to follow knowledge like a sinking star beyond the utmost bound of human thought. This is my son, mine own Telemachus, to whom I leave the sceptre and the isle, well loved of me, discerning to fulfill this labour, by slow prudence to make mild a rugged people, and through softer degrees subdue them to the useful and the good. Most blameless is he, centred in the sphere of common duties, decent not to fail in offices of tenderness, and pay meet adoration to my household gods when I am gone. He works his work, I mine. There lies the port, the vessel puffs her sail, there gloom the dark broad seas. My mariners, souls that have toiled and wrought and thought with me, that ever with a frolic welcome took the thunder and the sunshine, and opposed free hearts, free foreheads. You and I are old. Old age hath yet his honour and his toil. Death closes all, but something ere the end, some work of noble note may yet be done, not unbecoming men that strove with gods. The lights begin to twinkle from the rocks, the long day wanes, the slow moon climbs, the deep moans round with many voices. Come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world. Push off, and sitting well in order smite the sounding furrows for my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset and the bars of all the western stars until I die. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down. It may be we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides. And though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield.
All right. So, I'm going to pull this up fast. Oh, forgot that it wasn't just going to be a little like side thing. So just a quick refresh on the story of the Odyssey. You have Ulysses. He goes out, like, he fights in the Trojan War, and so that's what they mean when they talk about Troy, and then he is supposed to come back, and then he has all these problems because he angered the gods. And so in the Homeric version of it, which Homer is the person who wrote the Odyssey, as well as the Iliad, which the Iliad is the story about the battle, and so it also follows Ulysses. But anyway, in the Odyssey, like, the whole point is to get home. That's like the whole point of the journey. That's why he's out there. That's why, like, him running into all those problems is such a big deal. He just wants to get home. But throughout this, we get a different characterization of Ulysses as somebody who wants to continue forth. I mean, just really to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. That's a very Victorian ideal. Just that idea of, like, searching and seeking and knowledge and betterment. So that's how he's characterized. He's characterized as somebody who does not want to be home. He's still looking for adventure, even in his old age. He says that his son can take care of things. Like, he wants to go out and continue to adventure, and part of that reflects those Victorian ideals. And so I just want you to keep that in mind when we're with the Lady of Shalott. In contrast, I'm not sure if he pronounces it differently, but it's like, you'll see it's sort of like a rhyme with Camelot. So we'll watch that one now. Same guy.
The Lady of Shalott by Alfred Lord Tennyson. On either side the river lie long fields of barley and of rye, that clothe the wold and meet the sky, and through the field the road runs by to many towered Camelot, and down the people go, gazing where the lilies blow, round an island there below, the island of Shalott. Willows whiten, aspens quiver, little breezes dusk and shiver, through the wave that runs forever, by the island and the river, flowing down to Camelot. 4 grey walls and 4 grey towers overlook a space of flowers, and the silent isle embowers the Lady of Shalott. By the margin, willow-veiled, slide the heavy barges trailed by slow horses and unhailed, the shallop flitteth silken-sailed, skimming down to Camelot. And who hath seen her wave her hand, or at the casement seen her stand? Or is she known in all the land, the Lady of Shalott? Only reapers reaping early, in among the bearded barley, hear a song that echoes cheerly from the river winding clearly, down to towered Camelot. And by the moon the reaper weary, piling sheaves in uplands airy, listening, whispers, "'Tis the fairy, the Lady of Shalott." There she weaves by night and day, a magic web with colours gay. She has heard a whisper say, "A curse is on her if she stay to look down to Camelot." She knows not what the curse may be, and so she weaveth steadily, and little other care hath she, the Lady of Shalott. And moving through a mirror clear, there hangs before her all the year, shadows of the world appear. There she sees the highway near, winding down to Camelot. There the river eddy whirls, there the surly village churls, and the red cloaks of market girls pass onward from Shalott. Sometimes a troop of damsels glad, an abbot on an ambling pad, sometimes a curly shepherd lad, or a long-haired page in crimson clad, goes by to towered Camelot. And sometimes through the mirror blue the knights come riding two and two. She hath no loyal knight and true, the Lady of Shalott. But in her web she still delights to weave the mirror's magic sleights. For often through the silent nights a funeral with plumes and lights and music went to Camelot. And when the moon was overhead, came two lovers lately wed. "I am half sick of shadows," said the Lady of Shalott. A bowshot from her bower eaves, he rode between the barley sheaves. The sun came dazzling through the leaves, and flamed upon the brazen greaves of bold Sir Lancelot. A red-crossed knight forever kneeled to a lady in his shield that sparkled on the yellow field beside remote Shalott. The gemmy bridle glittered free, like to some branch of stars we see, hung in the golden galaxy. The bridle bells rang merrily as he rode down to Camelot. And from his blazoned baldric slung a mighty silver bugle hung, and as he rose his armour rung beside remote Shalott. All in the blue and clouded weather, thick jewels shone the saddle leather, the helmet and the helmet feather burned like one burning flame together as he rode down to Camelot. As often through the purple night, below the starry clusters bright, some bearded meteor burning bright moves over still Shalott. His broad clear brow in sunlight glowed, on burnished hooves his war-horse trode. From underneath his helmet flowed his coal-black curls as on he rode down to Camelot. From the bank and from the river he flashed into the crystal mirror. Tirra lirra by the river sang Sir Lancelot. She left the web, she left the loom. She made 3 paces through the room. She saw the water lily bloom. She saw the helmet and the plume as she looked down to Camelot. Out flew the web and floated wide. The mirror cracked from side to side. "The curse is come upon me," cried the Lady of Shalott. In the stormy east wind straining, the pale yellow woods were waning, the broad stream in his banks complaining, heavily the low sky raining over towered Camelot. Down she came and found a boat, beneath a willow left afloat, and around the prow she wrote, "The Lady of Shalott." And down the river's dim expanse, like some bold seer in a trance, seeing all his own mischance, with a glassy countenance did she look to Camelot. And at the closing of the day she loosed the chain and down she lay. The broad stream bore her far away, the Lady of Shalott. Lying robed in snowy white, that loosely flew to left and right, the leaves upon her falling light, through the noises of the night she floated down to Camelot. And as the boat head wound along the willowy hills and fields among, they heard her singing her last song, the Lady of Shalott. Heard a carol, mournful, holy, chanted loudly, chanted lowly, till her blood was frozen slowly, and her eyes were dark and holy, turned to towered Camelot. For ere she reached upon the tide, the first house by the water side, singing in her song she died, the Lady of Shalott. Under tower and balcony, by garden wall and gallery, a gleaming shape she floated by, dead pale between the houses high, silent unto Camelot. Out upon the wharves they came, knight and burgher, lord and dame, and around the prow they read her name, the Lady of Shalott. Who is this, and what is here, in the lighted palace near, died the sound of royal cheer, and they crossed themselves for fear, all the knights at Camelot. But Lancelot mused a little space. He said, "She has a lovely face. God in his mercy lend her grace, the Lady of Shalott."
Okay, so I'm trying to think about what the overall tone is in the story. It's not really like sad. It's kind of a weird poem if you think about it. Based off of the meter and the form of the poem, like how it's set up, um, it's meant to be a little more like up, I guess is the way to put it. Like it's not a negative tone, but some of the like messaging is kind of weird. Um, so the point of climax in the poem is when she looks down at Camelot, right? Because we know she has this curse, she can't look at Camelot. Oh my goodness, like she looks, and then how does the poem change after that point? So that comes in part 3. So if you're actually like looking at it, um, you'll see it. So it happens right at the end of part 3 here, where she actually like the mirror cracks. And then so what happens after that, right? So we've got like all of this description, the sun, all this stuff about Lancelot, how she's weaving and doing all of this, and then it gets like, how does the poem change from there, is what you're looking at. And then how are the Victorian ideals incorporated into the themes of them? So the one about Ulysses, we already said, is more about like going out and adventuring and the search for knowledge, whereas the Lady of Shalott is kind of enclosed, right? Women were still not as free in Victorian times. So she's locked away in her tower. She tries to get the one thing that she wants, and then she dies as a result of it. Sort of like stick to the rules sort of thing. I've read some other stuff that like a lot of people think that it's the ability to break out of those Victorian ideals, or even like stuffier ideals, getting out of like the confinement of society as well. So some thoughts for that one. All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure we have enough time for everything. Some notes. Okay. Cool. This one, it looks like we're actually looking at some more poetry. Okay. So, yes, I remember these. Okay, so I didn't pull anything up for these, so I must know what we're talking about. Okay, so part A is describe how repetition and variety intensify meaning in Sonnet 43. We'll read that. What might the statue of Neptune symbolize in My Last Duchess? What effect does the allusion to Sophocles have on the meaning of the poem Dover Beach? Compare and contrast the differing tones of My Last Duchess and Dover Beach. And then you're just going to choose. So for this last one, we're not going to go over it. You need to look at the poems, but you just need to pick words from the poems and write a sentence in the context. So we know we don't have to talk about E at all. That's pretty easy for you to do. So we'll go over these. Sorry, my work phone is making a lot of noise at me. Okay. I think y'all are like familiar, sort of, at least a little bit, with Sonnet 43 by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. So, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach, when feeling out of sight for the ends of being an ideal grace. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need, by sun and candlelight. I love thee freely, as men strive for right. I love thee purely, as they turn from praise. I love thee with the passion put to use in my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with the love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with the breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God choose, I shall but love thee better after death. Okay, so how do repetition and variety intensify the meaning? So she's repeating the I love thee, right? How do I love thee? I love thee. And so that repetition is really trying to drill that in, like, I love you so much. But then by changing up the words, she's describing even more intensely, like, how much she loves. Um, so that's how it intensifies meaning. All right. So Statue of Neptune. Okay, just want to make sure it is in my last Duchess. Ha, they're not terribly long. That's why I'm reading them. Sometimes I just get tired of reading. Okay. Okay, My Last Duchess by Robert Browning. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder. Now, Frau Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Wilt please you sit back and look at her, I said. Frau Pandolf by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance. But to thyself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but I, and seems as they would ask me if they dared, how such a glance came there. So, not the first, are you to turn back and ask thus. Sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only, called that spot of joy to the Duchess's cheek. Perhaps Frau Pandolf chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. Like she liked whate'er she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Sir, 'twas all one, my favor at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, the bow of cherries, some obvious officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule, she rode round the terrace, all and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least. She thanked men, good, but thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900-year-old name with anybody's gift. Who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Even you had skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such a one, and say, just this or that in you disgusts me. Here you miss, or there exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, in truth, and made excuse, even then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grew. I gave commands. Then all smiles stopped together. There she stands as if alive. Wilt please you rise? We'll meet the company below then. I repeat, the Count, your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed, though his daughter's fair self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. Nay, we'll go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse, thought a rarity, which claws of Innisbrook cast in bronze for me. This is one of those poems that I've always sort of been like, what is actually happening? If I am correct, I think it's about like she dies, but it's like his fault. Let's see. And that's why I like the statue of Neptune, because Neptune, being like the god of the sea, it sort of has a lot to do with that. We're gonna look at the sample answer. Yeah. Okay. It's about the control. Yes, his aggression towards his dead wife. That's right. Okay. Hunger for mastery of all the things. So that's right. So that's okay. I meant to bring that up in the last one, with the weaving and stuff that the Lady of Shalott does. There's this here, there's more kind of an allusion to the Odyssey with this. That idea, like Neptune in the Odyssey is like the most powerful god, because he's the one that sort of ruins Odysseus's life by like pushing everything over. So it's just like it is the symbol of his desire for control. And he controlled every aspect of his wife's life, and now she's dead, and he had this painting, and he's the only one that's allowed to look at it, and I'm pretty sure that you're supposed to believe that he killed her. It's been a while since I've like studied this poem, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that. And then okay, so the tone, right? So the tone with my last Duchess is kind of like dark. Is this idea of control, and now think about the difference in Dover Beach. The sea is calm tonight. The tide is full, the moon lies fair upon the straits. On the French coast the light gleams and is gone. The cliffs of England stand, glimmering and vast, out in the tranquil bay. Come to the window, sweet as the night air, only from the long line of spray where the sea meets the moon-blanched sand. Listen, you hear the grating roar of pebbles which the waves draw back and fling, at their return, up the high strand, begin and cease, and then again begin, with tremulous cadence slow, and bring the eternal note of sadness in. Sophocles, who's a Greek tragic dramatist, he wrote plays long ago, heard it on the Aegean, Greek sea, and brought it into his mind, the turbid ebb and flow of human misery. We find also in the sound of thought, hearing it by this distant northern sea. The sea of faith was once too at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But now I only hear its melancholy, long, withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind, and down the